Anu, Prashant, are we waiting for a couple of more minutes?
Yeah, we'll just wait for another few minutes. Let's say till 5, and then you want to start?
Okay.
Yeah, I think we can start. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. All right. Hi, everyone. Am I audible to you?
Yeah, ma'am, you're audible to everyone.
Okay. Thank you, Shiva. All right. So, very good evening and welcome to all of you for today's workshop. Today we will be talking about how to stay positive in face of challenges, uh, with examples from Sam Manekshaw's life, right? So that's what we will be covering today. And what I'm going to now do is share my screen with you, and you guys will be able to see the presentation. Now, there are a couple of rules as far as this workshop is concerned. Since it's a large number of people, I request all of you to keep yourself on mute. Only if you wish to talk, please unmute yourself and talk to me. Okay? This is a workshop. Even though this is a large number, I would really like if we could participate and talk. Um, let's take turns to do that. Yeah. And whenever possible, I will try and give you examples and make concepts easy for you to understand. If ever you do not understand me, please raise your hand or put it in the comments. It would be nice if you guys talk to me, but if you do not wish to talk to me, you can also respond using the comments. All right, am I clear to everyone? Great. So let's start. This is visible, correct? All right. So today what we are going to do is, like I told you some time back, we are going to talk about dealing with challenges, dealing with adversities, and we are going to discuss how to stay positive even in face of adversities and challenges. Correct? Uh, let's quickly begin. Let me introduce myself to you. I am Shreya. I am an industrial and organizational psychologist with about 4 years of experience in the industry as a soft skills trainer and in academics as a faculty teaching classes in organizational behavior and human resource management. Currently, I am doing my PhD in psychology from IIT Bombay on the topic organizational justice, and I have worked extensively in the area of skill development, been consulting also alongside and helping people develop the skills so that they can perform better at schools, at work, and at various other areas of their life. So that's a little bit about me. Quickly moving ahead, I need you guys to introduce yourself. Now we have a lot of people here. So maybe a couple of you, maybe 4 or 5 of you can volunteer to do this. I need to understand a few things when you introduce yourself. You could tell me your name, of course. Where are you from? What are you doing? Tell me one thing about yourself that you are proud about, and one thing that you're proud about yourself, but no one knows. Right? So this is simple. These are the three things on the screen that you need to tell me about. Right? I need maybe 4 or 5 of you to introduce yourself. You can volunteer, anyone who'd like to do it.
Hello, madam.
Hi, Shishir.
My name is Shishir, and I am from SKS College, studying BCom first year.
Okay.
And what do you want me to say, madam? Like what I am like proud of, or something like that.
Yeah, one thing about yourself that you're proud about, and one thing that you're proud about but nobody knows about it.
Like what I'm proud about is like I won a national competition when I was in the 8th standard. So like I think that's more like better thing about me, and I don't have anything which is like I'm proud about and I'm like afraid to tell about that.
All right. Okay, that's great. Thank you, Shishir. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, anyone else?
Hello.
Hello, yes?
Hello, I'm Srikanta.
Hi.
I am Shrikanta, ma'am.
Yes, Shrikanta, tell me.
I feel proud about yoga, ma'am.
Okay. You
Yoga
do yoga?
and
Okay.
yes, ma'am. I feel proud about that. And from childhood days, I am doing yoga with my father.
Uh-huh.
And I used to get up morning and I used to do yoga.
All right.
That is my proud, ma'am.
All right. Thank you, Shrikanta.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else? Anyone? Last one person, then we will move on. How about you, Janani? Would you like to introduce yourself to us? Janani, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you like to introduce yourself to us?
Yeah, I'm Janani. I'm proud that I like I have won more in playing guitars like competitions.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That's nice. So you play guitar and that's one thing that you're proud about, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. So the reason why I asked you about one thing that you are really proud about yourself is because how we think about ourselves, right? The things that we are proud about ourselves or the things that we are ashamed about ourselves are the ones that to a great extent affect how we think normally also, correct? And when we talk about thinking negative or we talk about thinking positive, a lot of these things actually have an influence on how we behave, how we think, how we feel, right? So let's move on and tell me, what do you think that we will talk today? What do you want to learn from this workshop today? Yes, I want to know from you all, what is it that you would like to learn today?
Excuse me, madam.
Yes, Shishir.
Like, what do you want to teach, madam? Like, we
I
want to
told
learn
you what
anything, whichever you can teach.
I told you about the topic of the workshop, right? Why I'm asking you this question is
No,
because
I
I want
actually
to.
don't know about the topic of the workshop, madam.
Okay, the topic of the workshop is how to be positive in difficulties. So when you're facing challenges, when you're facing difficulties, how to be positive, right? So that's the topic. Now within that topic is the specific because I obviously have a plan for you, but I want to ensure that my plan matches what you guys wish to learn. So it should not so happen that you are expecting something and then I teach you something and then you're not happy.
Nothing like that, madam. Thank you very much.
Anybody else? What are your expectations from the session today?
Hello,
Yes?
ma'am. I am Shrikanta.
Yes,
I
Shikant.
expect communication, ma'am.
Okay, you want to
Communication.
learn how to communicate.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay. Shikanta, not so much a part of this session because we'll be talking about more about how to be positive. But
Yes,
as
ma'am.
and when I can touch upon it, I'll try to do that.
Okay, ma'am.
And Shrikant, quick update. There is a workshop happening on interpersonal communication skill tomorrow at 5 p.m. So details
Okay,
will be
ma'am.
shared to you accordingly.
Okay, sir.
So today it's about positivity, positive
Okay.
mindset. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so like I told you, and like Prashant also told us, we will look at how to think more positively, right? And how to deal with challenges with a positive set of mind, frame of mind. All right, so that's pretty much what we will be covering. We will be looking at what is negativity, why do we think negatively as human beings, how can we deal with those negative thoughts, and how can we learn how to become more positive, right? So very quickly then, let me take you to this workshop. So the first thing is that as humans, we tend to value negative information more. Okay. Now, every day we are exposed to a lot of negative information, right? And a lot of us like to say that the moment we open. Saundarya Deep, can you mute yourself, please? Okay. So, as humans, we tend to value negative information more because we are exposed to a lot of negative information in the first place, right? And I was saying, like, how a lot of us like to say that, the moment you open the newspapers in the morning or the moment you switch on the TV, the news, we have all sorts of negative information. And especially since this corona started, every time you open, you can only see figures of people with these many number of people affected by corona, these many number of people died, these many number of people hospitalized, the vaccines are there are scams around corona, and then of course there are these thefts and this and that. So we are surrounded by negative information and negativity all the time, right? So that is one of the reasons why we see that you know there's a challenge that we are always exposed to a lot of negative information. Now, apart from that, there is some negative information that we generate by ourselves, right? It comes from things like doubts about ourselves or conflict that we may have had with someone at home or at work or at school, right? Or we are scolded by our parents or whatever. So again, some of our life experiences contribute to the negativity that we are exposed to. So there is so much negativity around us. Our brain also communicates negative things to us. So generally, as humans, then we are also hardwired to think more negatively, right? Uh, Let me give you a quick example. So, for example, you guys are writing an exam, and out of 10 questions that your exam paper had, you got 8 questions correct, and 2 questions you did not do right, right? You did not answer them correctly. So, the moment you come out of your exam hall, what is the question that you're going to have? What is it that's going to keep bothering you more? The 8 questions you did right or the 2 questions you got wrong? And believe me, most of you would probably respond to this saying that the 2 questions that we did not do correct are the ones that will actually bother us more. Am I correct? You guys can raise your hand if you think I'm correct. Okay, right. So that's the reason why we say that we are hardwired, or we are built in a way that we tend to focus on negative information more, right? Similarly, say for example, even when you're very nicely dressed and going to a party, and somebody and a lot of people appreciate how you look. Now everybody gives you a lot of compliments, but then there's one person or one friend who says something about your dress, something about how you're looking, which is not nice. And all your happiness that you got from so many appreciations and so many compliments that you got suddenly gets fizzled down, and then your brain is focused only on, oh, am I really not looking good? The other people must not be saying correct. If this person is saying I'm not looking good, I'm probably not looking good. Right? So all those things. So given that there is a positive information and there is a negative information, we tend to focus on negative information more. Right? So that's what is called negative thinking. Now, uh, usually it is a little difficult for us to differentiate between negative thoughts that we have and everyday worries, because sometimes you are stuck in traffic, your friend will makes you wait for a long time and you're sitting and waiting, or something nice does not happen. We all have those everyday negative experiences. But what is negative thinking is something which is more strong than those everyday experiences, which affects you, right? Those thoughts come again and again in your mind, And it affects how you think about yourself, it affects how you look at everyone else, it affects how you see the world, and it even affects with your every interferes with your everyday work and studies and functioning. And that is why negative thinking is slightly more serious than your everyday worries, and therefore it needs to be analyzed. Now there are three elements that we analyze when it comes to negative thinking. The first is the fear of future, right? We don't know what's happening, what's going to happen, right? We don't know 5 days down the line, 10 days down the line, 1 month, 5 months, 1 year down the line. We don't know what's going to happen, right? And therefore we are worried about the future. So that creates negativity. The anxiety about present, whatever we cannot control about our present circumstances, right? If we have an exam and we're not able to study right now, that probably creates some sort of negative thinking. And then there are thoughts about the past, that, say for example, there was a mathematics paper, you did not do well, you have another paper tomorrow, and you'll be like, I did not do well in mathematics paper, now tomorrow also I'm not going to be able to do well in my exam. So all these things affect our negativity. Now I'm going to show you a quick video that will help you understand this concept of negativity and negativity bias. This video is from one of our courses at Peak Mind. So what you will be able to do is you will be able to look at this video and you will be able to see what is negativity. It will give you a screenshot of what our courses are also like, so that if you ever wish to sign up for those, you can do that. Is the audio there? Can you hear it?
No, madam.
No, madam. No, ma'am.
1 second, let me just.
And why we
Now can you hear it?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
think negatively. During ancient times, our ancestors were surrounded by high risk situations like wild animals. To survive these high risk situations, our brain adapted to pay more attention to negative information like wild animals. More attention towards negative things helped our ancestors to take decisions which ensured their survival long enough for the next generation. Because, after all, it was a matter of life and death. But now, times have changed. We all live in a much safer environment where we don't have to deal with life threats like wild animals on a day-to-day basis. Still, our brain looks for negative information more than the positive ones in order to save us from harmful situations. Paying more attention to a negative situation is an evolutionary act of survival. Our brain always tries to keep us aware from any sort of danger, thanks to our ancestors. Whenever any negative situation happens, our brain pays more attention to the negative aspect of that situation. So don't worry if you feel that you're always surrounded with negativity. It's just your brain that's focusing only on the negative part of the things. Relax. Your brain is just tricking you. Now, we know our brain is hardwired for negativity. Let's dig deeper into negativity bias and understand how it affects us in day-to-day life. What is negativity bias? It is the tendency to attend to, learn from, and use negative information far more than positive information. Let's see how negativity bias affects us. Humans tend to register negative stimuli more rapidly than positive ones. As humans, we tend to respond more strongly to negative events than to positive ones. We think about negative events more than positive ones. We recall more insults than praise. We tend to make decisions based on the negative data more than the positive one. Moreover, negative information is perceived to be more truthful. Bad things grab our attention, stick to our memories, and elicit larger brain responses. Negativity bias affects how we think, respond, and feel. Now we know our brain is hardwired for negative thoughts. We are bound to have negative thoughts. Moreover, constant negative thoughts affect us badly. So it's important to be aware about our negative thoughts in order to combat them. But the good news is, despite our brain's default setting as negativity bias, we can challenge our negative thoughts and change them into positive ones and create better life experiences. We'll move forward and understand different types.
Okay, so this is what negativity and negativity bias is, whatever we were speaking about, right, sometime back. I hope the video also helped you do a quick recap of that. Moving on to understanding how negative thoughts affect us, right? So, like the video also said, negative thoughts influence our thinking, right? And the word that we use is distortions. Distortion basically means that it affects negatively, that it breaks up everything, right? And therefore, it kind of negatively affects our thoughts, right? So these are some of the examples, whatever I'm going to give you in some time, which will help you understand how exactly negativity can influence our thinking, right? The first cognitive distortion, or let's say a negative thought that affects our thinking, is going to be filtering. Okay, filtering basically speaks about the fact that we humans tend to filter information because we have only limited capacity to process information, right? Look at you. I mean, there is a sound coming from somewhere, you're seeing something, there's probably a phone ringing, there's somebody shouting in the background, so much happening. So we have only limited capacity to process information because there are so many distractions, right? So we filter out information. And when there is a positive information and there is a negative information, we tend to filter out information and focus on negative, like we spoke about some time back, right? The example that I gave you from a party, that if 10 people compliment you and one person says something bad, you will still filter your information and focus on the bad comment that somebody made instead of focusing on the 10 compliments that you got, right? And therefore, what will that do? That will spoil your mood. You will not be able to focus on the party. You will not be happy when everybody is talking and enjoying, and you will not be able to enjoy the party, right? So that's filtering. Then the second one is called polarized thinking. Now, when I say polarized thinking basically means that you look at a situation in black and white. Okay. Uh, Say, for example, a friend, you're walking in a hallway, okay, somewhere, or in a mall. You happen to see a friend. Okay. You give a shout out. The friend happens to look in your direction, but doesn't acknowledge that you said hi, doesn't acknowledge that you greeted, and simply walks ahead. Okay, now what are you going to do? You're going to think and you're going to say, no, she probably is angry with me because I did not call her for such a long time. She doesn't want to talk to me anymore. She's got better friends and she doesn't want to speak to me. Right? So you're going to look at it. So either a friend is a good friend or a friend is not a good friend. But then there are things in between in this situation also. Maybe she did not hear you. Maybe she looked in your direction, but she was looking at something else and she did not see you. She did not hear you, right? So we don't examine what is the gray area in between. We do not examine what are the other possibilities. We only look at it, either she heard me or she did not hear me, right? We don't look at the possibilities of in between. And again, what does that do? That creates a chain of negative thoughts. She's not my friend anymore. She's got better friends. I don't want to be her friend if she's not my friend. So those kind of thoughts, correct? Then comes the third thing, which is called overgeneralization. Now, when I say overgeneralization, it means that there is something that has happened like a little bit small instance, but we overgeneralize it and make it a big thing. Okay, so say for example, uh, you have not done well in say one exam, one paper, right? But you will overgeneralize the situation and say, I'm not a good student, I never do well in exams, all my friends are going to laugh at me. No, it doesn't happen like that. right? You just did not do well in that one paper. It does not mean you're a bad student. It does not mean you're not going to do well in other papers. But we tend to overgeneralize. That's how our brain works, right? Then the next one is emotional reasoning. Usually they say that our decisions to a large extent are determined by our emotions, right? Are affected by our emotions. So if you look at this emotional reasoning, what basically happens in this situation is that you have a bad experience and then you try to think that, oh God, this experience made me feel bad. So now I'm not going to do this thing at all. Say, for example, you are a new driver and one day you just learned how to drive and you are driving on the highway and you meet with like a very small accident. I mean, you are about to bump into a footpath maybe, but you did not. You stopped right on time, so nothing really happened, but you were about to, but it scared you, right? And so next time on, you're going to say, no, no, highway always scares me. I'm never going to drive on the highway, right? So that's called emotional reasoning. Then comes fallacy of change. Fallacy of change basically means that you are you think that if you change one thing, it is going to change the entire situation. And you constantly strive to change one thing and ignore everything else. So you're not able to enjoy the current situation also, and you are not able to change also, right? For example, let's say you have a best friend, okay, and the best friend is really a good person, but there is one thing about him or her that you don't like, and you constantly are behind that person to change. Maybe say a person does not dress well, okay, so you're constantly like, why don't you dress well, why don't you wear good clothes, why don't you comb your hair like this, why don't you do this, right? Constantly you're trying to change that one thing and you ignore everything that is good about this person, right? Now what you are doing, you're constantly irritating that person by constantly asking him or her to change something. That person will also not change and you will also never be happy, right? So that's called fallacy of change, because you think that if you change that one thing about the person, you'll be happy, but it never really happens, right? And the last thing is catastrophizing. Now when I say catastrophizing, it basically means that one thing you will interpret, and you will interpret it in a way, like a small thing you will make it into a really big thing, right? A small instance, you will make it into a catastrophe as if something really big has happened to you, right? Say, for example, you had a small tiff with a friend, and you say, no, no, this is a big fight, and I'm never going to speak to that person, and I'm sure the other person is also not interested in speaking to me. No, it was just a small tiff that, with some discussion, probably can also be taken care of and can be handled, right? So, these are some of the cognitive distortions. These are patterns of negative thought, right? In different ways, each of these things affect how we think, and they affect how we behave with close ones. And usually, if we engage into any of these things that I have discussed with you so far, what it basically does is it uh, it creates a lot of negativity. It affects our relationship in a bad way. Now, I'm just going to pause here for a second, and I want to know from you all, are you all able to understand? And if you all have any questions.
Hello.
Yes.
Catastrophizing means small things in happening. If friend makes small things with me, they will make a big issue on me. That is, no, ma'am.
Yes. So basically, a small thing has happened, but you blow
Uh,
it out of proportion, right?
oh, okay,
Your
ma'am.
mind works in a way that it is blown out of proportion, where you
Uh,
probably say that itna sa something has happened, and you say, no, no, such a big fight has happened. It was not a
okay.
big fight in the first place,
Oh, okay, ma'am.
right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anybody else has any other question?
No, madam.
Okay. All right. So are we good to move on then?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So what we did is, so far we looked at ways in which our brain learns how to think negatively, right? These are the ways in which our brain uh, sort of plays tricks on us, right, and stops us from thinking positively, right? But then there is good news. And the good news is that we can change our thought process and we can train our minds to think more positive, right? Now, what I'm going to discuss with you after this are a few ways in which you can learn how to think more positively. Okay. So, the first thing is that we need to develop hope and optimism. Now, what is the difference between hope and optimism? Hope is basically a sort of wishful thinking, right? That I hope this really happens, right? But when it comes to optimism, optimism is a more elongated, positive sort of a mindset, which also involves taking active steps to change your current situation, right? And therefore, instead of just thinking, optimism actually talks about a long term positive mindset instead of a small event based understanding, right? So we need to develop hope, we need to develop optimism, we need to start thinking positively. Now, how can we do that, right? So, a quick technique that I'm going to share with you, it only needs 3 steps. Okay. Now, what does it need? The first thing is you name the emotion that you're experiencing, right? The second thing that you do is you identify the thought behind those emotions. And the third thing is you start playing the opposite. Let me give you a quick example. Say, for example, you have not done well in your exams and you are feeling unwell. I'm sorry, you're feeling bad about it, right? So, what is the emotion that you're feeling sad? So, if you're writing it down on a piece of paper, you can write down saying, I am feeling sad. Now, what is it that is making you feel sad? I did not do well in my exams, and which is why I am feeling sad, right? And then the third thing that you start doing is you play the opposite, right? Which basically means that you imagine that the next paper that you have, you've done wonderful, you know answers to all the questions, you could finish your paper in time, and everything went well, right? So start playing the opposite. And what that really does is that it trains your brain to think that you will succeed in your next attempt. Okay. I don't know how many of you all have read the book The Secret, but The Secret basically talks about the fact that if you think positive, it actually happens. Right? Say, for example, if someone wishes to lose weight, and the person constantly starts thinking that I've lost weight, I've lost 10 kgs, I'm fitting well in my clothes, even goes to the extent of buying clothes 2 size smaller and keeping them. When all of that a person does, the results actually show. This is something similar. Okay, this is not magic, but what you are doing is you are training your brain to think positively. You're training your brain to imagine that you've actually got the result. And when that happens, you are motivated to put in more efforts, and you're motivated to put in efforts in a more structured manner, right? So, say for example, if it comes to sticking to a diet plan, you'll be more motivated to do that. You'll be more motivated to start, say, going to the gym, right? So all of those things you will start enjoying, right? So that's what this basically technique does. Now, the third thing that you can do is focus on self-limiting beliefs. Now, what are self-limiting beliefs? These are thoughts that tell you cannot do something. Okay. Say, for example, you are afraid of speaking in public or going on the stage and talking. So this little voice in your head which will tell you, no, you'll forget. I'll forget. Let's not do this. Let me not go to the stage. Let me not participate in a debate competition. But if you tell your brain that you can do it, right? If you tell your brain that no, I will be able to do this. Uh, I will succeed. I will do well. I'll be able to speak well. People will be happy with my speech. If you actually start telling yourself positive things, then you will actually be able to do it, right? And that's what this focusing on self-limiting beliefs talks about. It talks about the fact that when you have negative thoughts, what you need to do is you need to start focusing on these things, and you need to start changing how you talk to yourself, right? So that's one thing that you can do. Right? So far, everyone with me?
Yes, madam.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. The next thing that you can do is work on self-talk, right? Like I told you about self-limiting beliefs, self-talk, like I said, is that little voice in your head and constantly keeps telling you things. So if you train that voice to tell you positive things all the time, right? Which is probably what you can do is look into the mirror every morning and tell yourself that I'm happy, that I'm successful, that I'm able, that I'm confident, that I can do well. If these things you keep telling yourself, look into the mirror, tell yourself again and again, again and again, when you tell yourself these positive things, you actually start thinking more positive, right? Develop self compassion. Now, if a friend does not do well in exams, what do you tell your friend? It's okay, maybe next time. Next time you'll do better, right? But when you don't do well on your exams, what do you tell yourself? You're stupid. You never study well. You always waste your time. Now your parents will scold you. Your friends will laugh at you. Right? We are so critical about ourselves. But the same compassion that we show to our friends, if we can show to ourselves, right, it'll be nice. It'll help us be more positive. So if we can actually be compassionate to ourselves, be kind to ourselves, be caring for ourselves, it helps us be more positive generally, right? And the last thing is developing gratitude. We need to be thankful. We need to be thankful for everything that we have, right? We need to be thankful for the people around us, the good things that happen to us. And how do you do that? Tips that I'm going to share with you. One is writing gratitude journal. So what you can do is in a diary, whenever something nice happens to you, you make a note of it. And whenever you're not feeling nice, when you're feeling low, or you've had a not so good experience, you can open your diary and see everything good that has happened to you so far, and it will make you feel nice, right? Similarly, you can do that by writing small chits of instances that have happened to you and that are good, of some nice words that somebody said to you, right? Put that on a chit and put all those chits in a jar. And then when you're not feeling good, when you're feeling negative, pick it up, open, read, and you will automatically start feeling nice and positive, right? So these are the ways in which we can train our brain to think more positively. Now, today's workshop is about being positive in difficulties, right? In face of difficulties, in face of challenges. And we are going to do that through the life of Sam Manekshaw. Now, the picture that you see here is Sam Manekshaw. And Sam Manekshaw is a person who joined the Indian Army when Britishers were there, right? And he retired later. Now he's of course very very old, right? And he was someone who was respected by the Britishers, by Pakistanis, because he played a very important role in the 1962 war, right, with Pakistan. And he was loved by the Indian troops, of course, right? So a couple of instances that I would like to share with you from his life that will teach us how to learn to be positive. Okay. Now, the first one that I'm going to share with you is from the 1962 war itself. Okay, so around that time when the war was going to happen, okay, decision was to taken whether or not India should attack Pakistan, because the idea was to liberate Bangladesh, right? So discussions were happening, and then there was a meeting with the ministers, and he was also present there, and Indira Gandhi asked him, and he said, "Ma'am, this is not the time we should have the war." And Indira Gandhi was like, "Why?" So he said, "It will rain very soon, and if it rains and the rivers overflow, it will be very difficult for the armies to march, and we will lose." Okay. Then the meeting sort of got over, and later Indira Gandhi called him to her office and said, "Whatever you told me, Sam, was it true?" He said, "Yes, ma'am, it was absolutely true." And then, before anything else, Sam Manekshaw was like, "Ma'am, would you like me to give you the resignation on physical grounds or on mental grounds, or how?" So Indira Gandhi was like, "No, no, I don't need your resignation. I understand that you have a reason for saying this, and I believe you." Right? So, when important decisions are taken, you need to keep a calm mind and you need to be able to communicate very clearly what you want, what you intend, and what is the reason for you saying whatever you are saying. And Sam Manekshaw was really good at doing that. In fact, he would finish all his work early, and then he would go around in the camp and help all the junior army officers do their work as well. So he was very jovial, very happy-go-lucky, very used to. He was good with humor, so people really respected him. Another instance that I can give you was earlier when there was earlier when the Britishers were there. Sam Manekshaw was a part of another war, okay, and he got shot about 9 times in his lungs, okay, and he was extremely wounded when he was taken to the hospital, and the doctor looked at him, and the doctor was like, I can't do anything. This man is going to die, and he was about to move on to the next patient. But I don't know what happened to him. He came back for a second and he was like, "What happened to you, young man?" And to which Sam Manekshaw replied, "A donkey hit me." Right? Now he could have cried. He could have said, "Please save me, I have a family," and all of that. But he did not do that. Instead, he joked. And the doctor was like, if a man like you, who's short, who'll probably die very soon, can joke in a situation like this, then you are a man worth saving. So, doctor, who was initially not going to operate on him and who was going to move on to the next patient, actually chose to operate on him, and Sam Manekshaw was saved. Right? Even with the 1962 war, when Pakistani prisoners of war were got to India, Sam Manekshaw ensured that those prisoners of war slept in tents, whereas Indian army officers slept outside the tents. So he was gracious, he was courageous, like how he spoke in the meeting. He was jovial, he could use his humor well, right? So he was a wonderful man who did not lose focus when it came to difficulties, when it came to challenges, but instead he chose to fight them with a positive mind. Right? Now, I'm going to show you a quick video. Okay, the video is about Sam Manekshaw. You will hear him speak, and you will be able to know a little bit about him more. Okay. Do you guys understand Hindi?
Yes, madam.
Yes, madam. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Then I'm just going to play the video for you.
Okay, ma'am.
गया तो वहाँ सब सूबेदार मेजर और सरदार थे। तो जब मैं गया, मैंने सूबेदार मेजर साहब, पाकिस्तान सूबेदार मेजर साहब के हाथ मिलाया। मैंने कहा, साहब मैं देख सकता हूँ? आप कहते, साहब देखे। और वही सवाल हमेशा जो मेरे जवानों से पूछता हूँ, वही पूछा कि साहब पलंग में खटमल तो नहीं है? कि नहीं साहब। मच्छरदानी है? मच्छरदानी, हाँ साहब। मैं लंगर में जा सकता हूँ? वो लंगर में गया, वो जवान रोटी कूट रहा था जैसे अपने करते, उससे बोले मैं खाना टेस्ट कर सकता हूँ। फिर लेटरीन में गया, वहाँ पाकिस्तानी भंगी काम करता था। मैंने हाथ मिलाया, उसने इनकार किया। मैं क्यों मेरे साथ हाथ भी नहीं मिलाएगा? तो उसने हाथ मिलाया। जब हम वापस आ गए तो वो सूबेदार मेजर साहब मुझे कहते हैं कि हजूर आप गुस्ताखी माफ़ करेंगे? मैं कहा आप सूबेदार मेजर साहब हैं, जो मर्जी है कहें। कहता अब हमें मालूम हो गई साहब कि आपकी फ़ौज क्यों जीती है। आप आए, आपने हमसे पूछा खाना ठीक है, खटमल तो नहीं है, मच्छरदानी है वगैरह। भंगी के साथ भी आपने हाथ मिला। हमारे साहब लोग ऐसा नहीं करते, वो अपने आप को नवाबजादे समझते हैं। तो मैंने जो कैदी थे उनका बहुत अच्छी तरह बर्ताव किया उनके साथ।
Right. So that's how loved Sam Manekshaw was. He told us about why Pakistani soldiers also loved him so much, right? And what they told him was that now we know why your army won and our army lost, because the seniors in our army, they think they are some princes and they don't behave well with us, but you did that, right? and therefore, your army won. So that's what Sam Manekshaw was, and you can read more about him. And there are a lot of fascinating stories about his life on the internet if you guys are interested. Right, for the paucity of time, I'm going to move on, but you can definitely read about him. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is different mindsets. Right now, we said thinking positively is all about how we train our mind, right? And developing a good growth oriented mindset is a key to become more positive. So let's compare a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset, and we'll know how to do it better. Now, a growth mindset, a person having a growth mindset is someone who can persevere in face of failures. Let's look at Sam Manekshaw again. He was challenged by the prime minister. He was shot and he was about to die, but he never stopped trying, right? Uh, and therefore, he constantly kept trying to do better, and therefore he succeeded also. Another instance that I can recollect is, once there was somebody from the Indian Army itself, who was going to shoot Sam Manekshaw because of internal differences, right? And instead of making a big issue out of it, Sam Manekshaw, what he did? He called the person and said that you take a round of this ground. So the person said, sorry, next time I won't shoot you. Then later, Sam Manekshaw got to know that the person is actually again planning to shoot him that night when Sam Manekshaw was going to sleep. So instead of again panicking and making an issue and shouting at that person, what he did was he called the person and he said, why don't you do one thing? Why don't you watch my tent for tonight? Right? So instead of fighting with him or doing anything, what Sam Manekshaw said is, you watch my tent. Now, if the person who's going to kill him is going to watch his tent, then there's no worry, right? So that's someone with a growth oriented mindset who can think differently, right? Somebody who has a fixed mindset is going to give up in challenging situations, is going to avoid challenges altogether, right? Next is somebody who has a growth oriented mindset. This person is going to put in effort to learn new skills. But somebody who has a fixed mindset is going to be threatened by other successes. So if all my other friends get good marks in say mathematics, I'm going to feel threatened and I'm going to think I'll never succeed. Whereas somebody who has a growth oriented mindset will probably say, no, I'll put in effort, I'll study hard, I'll ask them how they study, which books they refer to, and I will put in effort and I will learn. Right? A person with a growth oriented mindset is going to find inspiration in other successes, will learn from others, like I said. But somebody with a fixed mindset, the person is going to have a desire to look smart, superficially will try, but will not succeed because there is not so much effort that has gone. Now, person with a growth oriented mindset will embrace challenges, will love challenges, will take up new things, right? Person with a fixed mindset thinks effort is fruitless. I'm anyway going to fail. Why fail? Why study? Right? But somebody with a growth mindset say, no, I will study, I will put in more amount of hours in studying, and I will do well in my exams. A growth oriented person will also accept criticism, right? The person is going to say, okay, they are saying something, I will learn from it. Somebody with a fixed mindset, on the other hand, will think that everybody is out there to only criticize them and will ignore feedback. And therefore, what happens is a person with a fixed mindset always has limited abilities because they never put in effort to learn. But a person with a growth oriented mindset can build abilities, can learn because they have a desire to learn, right? So, all those steps that I told you some time back will also help you develop a more growth oriented mindset, which is more open to learning, right? Now, the next thing is I'm going to talk to you about some everyday tips that will help you develop a more growth oriented mindset and develop a generally more positive mindset. So, one is observe self talk. Like I told you earlier, also look into the mirror, tell yourself that I'm going to do well, I'm going to study hard, I'm going to score well in my exams, and that will help, right? Begin your day with positive affirmations. The moment you get up, you tell yourself a few good things. Tell yourself I'm patient, tell yourself I'm kind, tell yourself I'm successful, right? And that will boost you, right? That will make you feel like learning new things, that will make you feel like talking to more people, understanding them, right? Then set aside some time to meditate. And when I say meditate, I'm not saying, close your eyes and chant something. Meditate simply means focusing your energy into one thing, focusing all your thoughts towards one thing, and directing your thought. Right? There are a lot of guided meditations available on YouTube also. Check out those and then learn how to meditate. It really helps. Smile, because it really helps. It helps you feel extremely positive. Even when you're not feeling nice, you had a fight with someone, you smile and talk to that person, it automatically changes things. Right? And the last thing is, I'm sorry, and the last thing is use humor. Right? So, like Sam Manekshaw again, how even in difficult situations he smiled, he could joke. If he can also use humor, it will really help. It will lighten the situation. It will decrease the stress of the situation, and it will help us find solutions even in the most difficult situations that we're facing. Right? If we learn to laugh on ourselves, if we learn to laugh at the situation, it always helps. So that's what I had from myself. Right. Thank you very much for being a part of the workshop today. We still have about 3-4 minutes. So if you have questions to ask me, I'll be happy to answer. Also, I think Prashant has already shared the feedback form with you. So before you leave the session today, kindly fill up the feedback form and do check out our other programs. We have a lot of interesting workshops coming for you. So check them out. I'm sure they'll help you. Yeah, thank you very much for being with me today. And if you have questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you.
So anyone, any questions that you want to ask? Shishir, you have any questions? Shrikant, any questions you have?
Excuse me,
No, sir.
sir. Excuse me,
Yes,
sir.
please. Yes.
Like, will you teach in Kannada too?
I cannot speak Kannada, Shishir, unfortunately.
Okay.
But we do have in our team a couple of people who
Something like this.
talk
So
Kannada.
I just asked you.
Prashant, maybe we can connect with some people from the team who speak Kannada and we can organize something.
Definitely. So Shishir, ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ we have ಇಬ್ರು ಟೀಚರ್ಸ್ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಇಬ್ರು ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪರ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ ಇಂಟರಾಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ವರ್ಕ್ಶಾಪ್ಸ್ ಮುಂದಿನ ವಾರದಲ್ಲಿ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ವೀಕ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಐ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಸೆಂಡಿಂಗ್ ಯು ದ ಡೀಟೇಲ್ಸ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ಇಟ್.
ಸೊ ತಮ್ಮ ನಂಬರ್ ಸಿಗ್ಬೋದಾ ಸರ್? ತಮ್ಮ ನಂಬರ್ ಸಿಗ್ಬೋದಾ?
ನಂಬರ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಡ್ರಾಪ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. ನಂಬರು ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ಲಿ ಗೆಟ್ ಇನ್ ಟಚ್ ವಿತ್ ಮೀ. ಸೊ ನೀವು ಯಾವ ಕಾಲೇಜ್ ಶಿಶಿರ್?
ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಹೇಳ್ಬಿಟ್ರೆ ನಾನು ಬರ್ಕೊಂಡ್ಬಿಡ್ತೀನಿ ಇವಾಗಲೇ.
ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಚಾಟ್ ಬಾಕ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹಾಕ್ತೀನಿ. ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಎವ್ರಿಬಡಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಟೇಕ್ ಡೌನ್ ಮೈ ನಂಬರ್. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Prashant, it looks like they're experiencing some problem with the feedback form. It says today's workshop is not visible, something like that.
Is it?
I'm just adding that to the workshop, into the list.
Okay.
Just give me 1 minute.
Yeah, sure, Manish.
Hello, ma'am. I have one doubt.
Yes, Shrikant.
Ma'am, in human brain set, more negative feelings are there, ma'am. It can be positive feeling. Why, ma'am?
Right. I'm sorry, come again.
Ma'am, in brain, person will thought more negative feelings than positive feelings, ma'am.
Correct. Why
Yes,
you were
ma'am,
asking?
Yes, ma'am.
Shrikanta, remember that video I showed you from our course, right? What it
yes,
said
ma'am.
is that, our brains are structured in a way that we tend to pay more attention to things that are harmful. Okay. So, for example, if somebody is criticizing us or saying something bad about us, it is in a way harmful for our self-esteem. It will not make us feel good, correct? So, those information, those things, we generally tend to pay more attention to because it is directly related to us and we want to protect ourselves.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Right? That is why we tend to pay more attention to negative things.
Okay, thank you.
Guys, you can check out the attendance form now. I think today's workshop has been added. Anything else? Any other question?
No, that's it.
Anybody else? Okay, if you guys don't have any questions, then you can maybe fill up the feedback form, and once you're done filling it up, you can exit the session.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.